Hey guys, welcome back to Greg's Fishroom. Today we are in the kitchen. Yes, the kitchen, because we are making food, but not for humans. We're making it for our fish, of course. Today we are making the largest canister of Repashy that Repashy sells. This is the Soilent green variety, and this is by far the best formula for your Bristlenose Plecos. Now, I happened to pick up this can at none other than KJE Aquatics. It was a custom order from him. You can find Keith on Facebook, or you can go to his website, kjeaquatics.com. He was nice enough to custom order the largest canister of Repashy that Repashy sells so that I can make a giant batch of food for my fish. I'm gonna do some of it fresh. I'm gonna freeze some of it. We're gonna use a whole bunch of different dishes and trays and methods of feeding and mixing this food. So come along with me and learn how to be a better aquarist. Okay, this project is taking up the entire kitchen counter at the moment, but we're going to try to do this as fast as we can and then clean up. So this is Repashy Soilent Green. This is the 4.4 pound jar of Repashy. This makes an absolute ton of gel food for your fish, and I normally wouldn't buy one this big, except for the fact that oftentimes I find myself not having fresh vegetables to feed to my plecos, and the most convenient way that I've found to feed them reliably in large volumes is to have Repashy already made and frozen in the freezer. So that's primarily what we're going to do today. We're also going to feed some fresh to the fish, and we're also going to test out different methods of pouring this. We're going to use some muffin tins, some trays, non-stick trays of different types, some glass trays, some of these silicone trays. We'll get a nice Han Solo. Maybe we'll get a little baby pleco sucking on a Han Solo gel. That would be kind of funny. And we're also going to pour some fresh Repashy into these. These are just a terracotta drip tray for your plants, for like a potted plant. And I'm going to test out the different consistencies of Repashy as well. So you can tell the difference and you can see the difference between a mix ratio of 1 parts powder to 2 parts water. We're going to test that out. We're going to do 2.5 parts water, and we're going to do up to 3 parts water. And what you're going to see is the less water we put in, the more grainy that is going to be, and the quicker it's going to set. It's going to be, you know, not really a Play-Doh-like consistency, but it's going to be chunky. It's going to have some weight to it. As we get more and more water in this mix, it's going to be much easier, much smoother, much more free-flowing, and easier to sort of spread into containers. We won't need to mash it with a spoon. We can just pour it nicely and it will solidify. But there's pros and cons to doing it both ways, and we'll check all of that out. So first step is we're going to start some water boiling, and I like to use an electric kettle here. We're going to fill that up to the max, turn that on, and let that heat up. And once that heats up, we're going to use a Pyrex dish or bowl. And I've already marked out, you can see the 1 cup of powder, and then up here you can see up to the 3 cup mark, that would be 2 cups of liquid, and then up to 4 cups total would be 3 cups of liquid total, because we're going to mix everything in this one container. Now, technically the directions say that you should bring your water to a boil and then slowly add your powdered mix to it. I've done that. It works great. It just makes more dishes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-measure my powder here, add my boiling water, and stir like crazy. And you only have a limited amount of time to do that before it starts to set up. So you want to do it quick. And the most important thing to note is if you put your powder on the bottom and you put your water on top, you need to be really thorough with your mixing to get your spoon all the way down in the bottom corners to make sure that you don't have any dry spots, because that would just create waste at the end of the day. So you want that thoroughly mixed. So let's wait for this water to heat up, and then we'll come back and we'll start testing this out. Okay, our water is just about done heating up, and what I'm going to do is pre-measure out our powder. And this stuff will kick up in the air if you're not careful, so don't shake it up before opening it, and just handle it with a little bit of care. You don't want to get too much of it up in the air, make a mess. But what we're going for here is 1 cup of powdered mix. That's where we're going to start. And we're going to do 2 cups of water by volume. It's a 1 to 2 mix. And we're going to get that water in here now. When the total mix gets up to a total of 3 cups, that's where we want it. Now this is where you start running out of time, so you really want to make sure that you're ready here, and all of your forms, anything you're going to mix this or dump this into, is ready to go. And this one is going to be the clumpiest mix. It's also going to be the one that sets up the fastest, and it's going to be the hardest to pour because it's 1 to 2. So it's a lot thicker than the other mix ratios. And that's okay. There's pros and cons to that. The pro is that it's much more nutrient dense, ounce for ounce. This is going to have more material with nutritional value and less water weight, so that can be a good thing. Alright, this is pretty well mixed, and what we're going to do first is fill our fresh terracotta tray. As you can see, it does pour fairly nicely into the tray. It sort of spreads itself out pretty evenly. No real problems there. So we're going to let that set, and then what we're going to do is the rest of this we're just going to pour into our mold here. And I know that because this is sort of the fastest to set up, I'm using the largest tin tray here, making the largest little hockey pucks of mix, and with the thinner mixes that we'll do next, we'll do some smaller ones. But I just wanted to get this out as quickly as possible. And you can see here, this is exactly what I was talking about mixing well. And you can see there is a little bit of dry mix that was left in one of the corners while I was mixing this up. So I'm just going to mix up the remainder there so that it looks a little bit nicer, not too bad. And we're just going to add that to the top. And you can see already within a minute of adding that water and mixing it up, it's already starting to set a little bit. And if we let this wait much longer, it's going to start sticking to the spoon, and it'll start making these chunks and these flakes. At this point, it's almost impossible to pour this anymore into a container, and it's not going to really stick well to itself, and it's not really going to stick well to a container. So essentially what you're left with here is waste. Now I could put this in a little plastic baggie, freeze this, or use it fresh and potentially feed it to my my pleco fry, because they don't need as much material. But in this case, we want to move on to the next one, and so we're just going to scrape this out, reset, get a new batch of water heated, and we'll go again. And next time we'll do 1 to 2.5 ratio. Okay, here we go, second batch. I've already pre-measured out my 1 cup of dry mix. and this time we're going to do 2.5 cups of water to this mix. We'll start with our tray, see how it pours out, and now I have a mini muffin tin here so that we can get additional pieces of food for freezing for later use. So here we go. Water's nice and hot. We're going up to 3.5 total. So that's a 1 to 2.5 ratio. And I find that this gives you, I think really the most important thing with adding more water is it gives you a little bit longer to work with it before it sets up. And it's also easier to stir. So those things can certainly be helpful. We've got a little bit of clumping going on with our spoon. And so one thing we might try here is just using a second spoon to knock off any of that dry mix that might be on our first spoon. And the more water you add, like I said, the less critical it is to go really, really fast. So it's a little bit more leisurely, but we still want to get going here. So that's pretty well mixed up. I see a little bit of dries left, but not too bad. Let's see how this pours. Let's say it pours a little bit faster, spreads out a little bit faster as well, and a little bit easier to work with. This has the consistency of like brownie batter almost, or like cake batter, and the one before it was just a little bit denser. So you can see this pours pretty nice. At this point, I think with the 1 to 2, we were already running out of time to pour it. But as you can see, it's still pretty liquidy. And we're just going to keep going. Now you might say, Greg, this is a lot of food, but I've got a lot of Plecos, and it's good in the freezer for at least a few months. So I'll be feeding it off and on, I would say every third day. I like to do fresh zucchinis and then some sort of like processed food, like a spirulina pellet or something like that on the next day, and then I'll do a Repashy. So that looks pretty good. We're gonna let that set up, heat some more water, and we'll go again. Okay, and third batch here. This one, we've got our dry mix pre-measured, 1 cup of that, and now we're gonna do 3 cups of water for a total of 4 cups of mixture. One thing I love about Repashy is you're not paying for the water weight. You're just paying for the dry mix. So you might say Repashy is really expensive, like way more expensive than any other fish food. But this is why, because 1 cup of mix, 1 cup of food is making up to 4 cups here. And so it goes a much further way. Buying dry ingredients is way more economical than buying water weight. So because this has a lot of water in it, it's going to give us the longest time here to mix, and so I'm not really in a rush at all. And so we'll just make sure we get as many of those clumps mixed in as we can, and then we'll pour this out. And this time we're going to use some of the silicone trays because we should get a nice liquidy pour here, and so it should be easiest to use those silicone trays. I also have the sheet pan in the back. I don't know if it's for whoopie pies or what, but they're very shallow dishes, And so one thing you have to think about for Repashy, and especially Plecos, is they like large grazing surfaces. You don't want to give them a giant ball or a giant cube of Repashy. What they would much prefer is a nice large surface area to graze on. And so that's why I use these shallow terracotta dishes. And that's why we're going to be doing some shallower muffin trays here. Okay, so we'll do a fish. See how that turns out. We'll do a Han Solo in carbonite, because why not? And then we'll see if we can get the rest here in this tray. So again, my plan here is to feed the terracotta dishes fresh to all of my plecos, and everything else, once it cools down, solidifies, we're going to pop them out, throw them in a bag, and throw them in the feeder, or in the freezer. And then we'll feed those later. So you can see this is much easier to pour. It's literally just like a liquid, almost like a soup consistency. And so yeah, that's a lot more pleasant to work with. It's a huge difference, the 1-to-2 ratio versus the 1-to-3 ratio. Huge difference. And honestly, for me, I think what I prefer is the 1-to-3 for my plecos. And yes, that means it's not as nutrient dense. It means there is more water weight to the completed mixture. However, plecos are grazing animals, and so they're going to be grazing at this all day long. And so if they want more, there will be more for them to eat. So they don't necessarily need to gorge themselves on small cubes of Repashy. There we go. So I would actually say this creates the least amount of waste, because there's the least clumping going on, and there's less sticking of material to the sidewalls of our dish here, our cup. So you get more food because you have more water, and you waste quite a bit less in the process of mixing. So let's let this set up. We'll make some more and we'll come right back. Okay, quick note on my favorite pans for Repashy. I would say by far my favorite is this glass bakeware. Essentially what I do is pour it in up to about 3/4 of an inch was ideal. Let it cool, and then I could just flip this over onto a cutting board and cut it into whatever shape and size I want. It would flop right out and wouldn't stick at all. Really easy to clean up, and it basically wastes no material. Second favorite would be something like a mini muffin tin, especially because it doesn't really stick to a surface like this. You've got a lot of surface area, so it cools down quite quickly. The only annoying part is you have to sort of use your fingers or a spoon or something to scoop them out individually, and sometimes that can make a little bit of a mess, and sometimes pouring into such small containers can make a little bit of a mess. But again, it's around 3/4 of an inch tall. I'd say that's about ideal for curing your Repashy.
Alright guys, it is the next day. It took several hours to make all of that Repashy. Most of it went into the freezer. Some of it went directly to my plecos. So let's go take a look at how they liked it. Okay, so looks like they liked it. So how did we do here? Well, we started with the 4.4 pounds of the Soilent green powder, and to that we primarily did the 3-to-1 mix. Most of that went into the freezer, and now I'm going to weigh it up to see what we have. So the scale is on, it's in pounds. Here's the first bag. It's sort of a block of ice after going through the freezer. Put that in. 7.5 pounds. Here's the second bag. We're up to 16 pounds. And the final bag here. All of these pieces are small enough to feed. Essentially what I would need to do is warm this up a bit, snap it off, and feed it directly to the fish. All 3 bags are in, and we have 24 pounds of fish food on the dot. 24 pounds of Repashy that came from this 4.4 pound canister. So this stuff might be pricey, might be spendy, but it makes a lot of food. Anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a like, please subscribe, but also please check out Nature Forged Aquatics on Amazon. You can check out products like this, the Nature Forged Aquatics alder cones, which is a great product to add to your blackwater tanks, to your shrimp tanks, to your soft water aquariums. Provides natural tannins, allows you to naturally and slowly drop the pH in your aquariums. It's a great product. This is a 4-ounce bag. It has tons of cones in it. It will last you a very long time. It also helps support this channel because Nature Forged Aquatics is my brand. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later.